You're at a family gathering. Someone brings up church, faith, their spiritual journey. Everyone nods along. Some people share their own experiences. The conversation flows naturally around beliefs and blessings and God's plan. And you feel nothing but discomfort. Not because you want to argue, not because you're trying to be edgy or rebellious, but because something deep inside you rejects the entire framework. The language feels foreign. The concepts feel hollow. The certainty everyone else seems to have about supernatural claims feels incomprehensible. You've tried. You've read the books, attended the services, listened to the sermons. You wanted to feel what everyone else claims to feel. That connection, that faith, that sense of meaning and purpose that comes from religious belief. But you don't. And you can't fake it. When people discover you're not religious, the reactions are predictable. Concern, pity, sometimes judgment. You just need to open your heart. You haven't found the right community. I'll pray for you. As if your lack of religious belief is a problem that needs fixing, a deficit that needs filling, a void where something important should be. But here's what they don't understand. You don't feel empty. You don't feel lost. You feel perfectly fine without religion. In fact, you feel more authentic, more honest, more aligned with reality, precisely because you've stopped trying to force yourself to believe things that don't make sense to you. And yet, you're constantly made to feel like something is wrong with you, like you're missing a fundamental part of the human experience. Like your brain is somehow broken because it doesn't respond to religious concepts the way everyone else's apparently does. Tonight, I'm going to show you the psychology and neuroscience behind religious aversion, why some brains are wired to reject religious frameworks, and why there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Before we dive deep into applied psychology, subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments where you're from. Alex Morrison was 26 years old when he finally stopped pretending to be interested in his family's religion. He'd been raised in a deeply religious household. Church every Sunday, Bible study on Wednesdays, prayer before meals, faith integrated into every aspect of family life. And from as early as he could remember, none of it resonated with him. The stories felt like fairy tales. The prayers felt like talking to an empty room. The certainty everyone else had about God's existence and intervention felt completely disconnected from his experience of reality. But he'd pretended for years, went through the motions, said the right things, because admitting he didn't believe felt like betraying his family, his community, everything he'd been raised to value. When he finally told his parents he no longer identified as religious, their reaction was devastation. His mother cried. His father said he was disappointed. Extended family members sent him books, invited him to special services, told him they were praying for his soul. No one asked him why. No one seemed interested in understanding his perspective. They just assumed he was confused, rebellious, or had been led astray by secular culture. What Alex discovered through therapy and extensive research was that his aversion to religion wasn't rebellion or confusion. It was neurology. Dr. Jordan Grafman, neuroscientist at Northwestern University, has spent years studying the brain basis of religious belief using fMRI technology. His research shows that religious belief activates specific neural networks, particularly regions associated with social cognition, theory of mind, understanding others' mental states, and cognitive control. For people with strong religious belief, these networks show robust activation when processing religious concepts. Their brains are wired to find meaning, pattern, and agency in religious frameworks. But not everyone's brain works this way. Dr. Grafman's research found significant individual variation in how brains process religious concepts. Some people show minimal activation in these networks when exposed to religious ideas. Their brains simply don't respond to religious stimuli the way believers' brains do. It's not choice. It's not moral failing. It's neurological architecture. There's also a personality component. Dr. Luke Galen, psychologist specializing in the psychology of religion and atheism, found that people who are strongly oriented toward empirical thinking, analytical reasoning, and evidence-based beliefs often struggle with religious concepts that require faith without evidence. This connects to cognitive style. Some people have brains that are naturally skeptical that require evidence before accepting claims, that feel cognitive dissonance when asked to believe things that contradict observable reality. This isn't arrogance or closed-mindedness. It's a fundamental difference in how their brains process information and evaluate truth claims. Alex scored extremely high on measures of analytical thinking and need for empirical evidence. His brain demanded logical consistency, observable proof, rational explanation. Religious claims that relied on faith, supernatural intervention, and acceptance without evidence created immediate cognitive conflict. Trying to force himself to believe felt like trying to convince himself that 2 plus 2 equals 5. Technically, he could repeat the words, but his brain rejected the claim at a fundamental level. There's also research on what psychologists call cognitive closure, the need for definite answers versus comfort with ambiguity. Dr. Ari Kruglansky's work shows that people with high need for cognitive closure tend to be more religious. They're uncomfortable with uncertainty and find comfort in religious frameworks that provide definite answers to life's big questions. People with low need for cognitive closure, those comfortable with ambiguity, uncertainty, and "I don't know" as a valid answer, often struggle with religious certainty. They don't need definitive answers about the origin of the universe, the purpose of existence, or what happens after death. They're comfortable with mystery. Alex realized he was profoundly comfortable with uncertainty. He didn't need to know why the universe exists or what happens after death. "I don't know" felt honest and acceptable. Religious claims to have definitive answers to these unknowable questions felt presumptuous and intellectually dishonest to him. But here's what's crucial. None of this makes Alex or people like him deficient. Western culture, particularly in religious majority societies, treats religious belief as the default normal state, and non-belief as deviation that requires explanation. But globally and historically, there's enormous diversity in religious belief and practice. And modern neuroscience suggests that religious belief isn't universal or inevitable. It's one possible way brains can be configured, but not the only way or necessarily the correct way. Dr. Miguel Farias, psychologist at Coventry University studying the psychology of atheism, found that non-religious people report equal or higher levels of well-being, life satisfaction, and moral behavior compared to religious people. The assumption that religion is necessary for meaning, morality, or happiness is simply not supported by evidence. Alex discovered communities of non-religious people through online forums and local secular groups. For the first time, he was around people who understood his perspective intrinsically, who didn't view his lack of belief as a problem needing correction. They discussed philosophy, ethics, meaning, purpose, all the big questions that religion claims to address, but from secular, evidence-based frameworks. Alex found these conversations more intellectually satisfying than any religious discussion he'd ever had, precisely because they didn't require accepting unverifiable supernatural claims. One crucial distinction Alex learned: rejecting religion doesn't mean rejecting meaning, community, morality, or transcendent experiences. It means finding those things through different frameworks. Meaning can come from relationships, work, creativity, contributing to society, learning, experiencing beauty. Community can come from shared interests, values, and goals that don't require supernatural beliefs. Morality can be grounded in empathy, reason, and concern for well-being rather than divine command. Transcendent experiences, awe, wonder, connection to something larger than yourself, can come from nature, art, music, science, human connection. Religion doesn't have a monopoly on any of these human needs. It's just one system for addressing them. Alex also had to confront something uncomfortable. Some of his aversion to religion wasn't just neurological incompatibility. It was also reaction to harm he'd witnessed religion cause: judgment, exclusion, moral rigidity, resistance to scientific evidence, use of faith to justify discrimination. Dr. Daryl Ray, psychologist and author of The God Virus, discusses how negative experiences with religion can create what he calls religious trauma syndrome. Psychological harm from authoritarian religious environments, shame-based teachings, fear-based control, or moral injury from being forced to endorse beliefs that contradict one's values. Alex recognized some of this in himself. His aversion wasn't only about cognitive incompatibility with religious claims, it was also about moral objection to how religion had been used to cause harm in his community and globally. Separating these two components was important. The neurological incompatibility wasn't about religion being bad. It was about his brain not processing religious concepts as meaningful. The moral objection was about specific harmful applications of religious belief, which is a separate issue. Some people reject religion purely on cognitive grounds. The claims don't make sense to their evidence-oriented brains. Others reject it on moral grounds. They object to specific teachings or consequences. Many people, like Alex, experience both. All of these positions are valid. Your brain is yours. Your cognitive style is yours. Your moral framework is yours. You don't owe anyone belief in supernatural claims that don't resonate with your neurological architecture or your ethical values. The pressure to be religious often comes from the assumption that religion is necessary for being a complete, moral, meaningful human being. But this assumption is culturally constructed, not scientifically supported. Alex is 31 now. He's openly non-religious, has built a life filled with meaning, purpose, community, and values, none of which require supernatural belief. His relationship with his family is complicated but functional. They've agreed to disagree, to respect each other's perspectives even when they don't understand them. He's discovered that the discomfort he felt in religious contexts wasn't a sign of something missing in him. It was a sign of something present, a cognitive style that values evidence, a comfort with uncertainty, a brain that doesn't respond to religious frameworks the way others' brains do. I spent years thinking I was broken, Alex told me, that everyone else had access to something I couldn't reach. But I wasn't broken. I was just different. My brain works differently, and that's not only okay, it's valuable. The world needs people who think critically, who question authority, who don't accept claims without evidence. Those aren't deficits. Those are strengths. If you don't like religion, if religious concepts feel hollow or false or meaningless to you, you're not broken. You're not missing some crucial human component. Your brain is wired differently. Your cognitive style is different, and that difference is legitimate, valid, and valuable. You don't need religion to have meaning. You don't need faith to have morality. You don't need supernatural belief to experience awe, wonder, connection, or purpose. You just need to build those things through frameworks that actually resonate with how your brain works, rather than forcing yourself into systems designed for different neurological architectures. Your skepticism is valid. Your need for evidence is valid. Your comfort with uncertainty is valid. Your rejection of claims that don't make rational sense is valid. You're not broken. You're just honest about what your brain can and cannot accept as true. And in a world that often values comfortable belief over uncomfortable honesty, that's actually something to be proud of. And that's the end of our experience. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It's very important for us to know the truth. Be honest in the comments, leaving creative suggestions so we can improve the quality of our content more and more. Comment where you're from. Check out the video on the screen. I'm sure you'll like it. See you in a few seconds. We are Applied Psychology, and this is our contribution. Subscribe.